Hi everyone, this is Nicole, and this is a workshop that I did in real life, but I thought would be helpful to also record for people to be able to watch again or review things again. So here's hoping that it's helpful. So, you know me, but I've worked on a ton of websites, probably close to 300 or 400 at this point. And I've worked on it with probably somewhere around 300 different clients, mainly small businesses and nonprofits. So I know a lot of what some of you are going through in terms of getting everything set up and also keeping things running smoothly. So I like to be a resource. So I'm happy if people want to contact me, whether it's through Facebook or from my email, which I'll provide at the end and also in the description of this video. Um, so basically, the reason that people want to learn about online marketing is they see how powerful it can be. They see how quickly it can work. They see that it can make real world money. And they see how easy it is for people to share with other people. And this is an example of something I did where I was heading to my hometown in northern Maine, and I was going to bring people back some potatoes if they wanted them. I marked them up a little bit to make it worth the hassle, and definitely I sold a lot of potatoes in about 5 minutes. So we know that a lot of people want to not only buy online, but they are used to learning about things online, whether it's um, learning about different brands or whatever through social media, or reading online reviews, or even just using the internet to contact their family and friends to make a purchase. So recommendations matter, and those recommendations are increasingly online. We're also seeing, and this is a global graph too, so I feel like the United States, we might have already crossed over, but we see that if we compare television watching with use of internet, we see the use of internet is increasing, the watching of television is decreasing, and eventually the internet will surpass television, probably sometime it looks like in 2018 or 19. So we know that the internet is the predominant form of media. And we also know that people are keeping their basically online lives within about a foot of them at all times on their mobile devices. Um, I think 1 out of every 5 people checks the internet before they even get out of bed or something like that. I've read some different stats, but we see that increasingly people are spending more time on their mobile devices and more time online generally. But we see that the use of mobile devices is increasing that online usage. And we also see that not only are people using it, but they're actually making purchases. And a lot of people prefer to make purchases online versus in a store. I thought the stat of 5% of Americans shopping online daily was kind of crazy, but I guess this is the world we live in. So we know that small business owners, nonprofits we want to do more online, all of us. We know that's where our customers are. We know that's where people are spending money. We know that's where people are talking. And it doesn't have to be time consuming and expensive. We just need to put concerted, good efforts into things that make the most sense. And I guess that's what this workshop is going to be about, is figuring out what makes sense for you. And what makes sense for you is not something that makes sense for the business down the street or your friend that runs a business in another state or country. This is something that you have to work through yourself, because you know this answer to this question way better than I could, which is, who are your customers? And I know ideally you want to be everybody's person, but the reality is that in choosing where to spend your time online and choosing what websites to use and things like that, it's really useful to know who your customers are, because it'll help you make some decisions. So, not only can you maximize your efforts in the best places and make good choices for your business, but you can also potentially head off bad customers too. So if you're really specific about who you sell to, you can be really specific about how you approach them online. So some things you may know about your customers are typical gender, age, their income or family situation, what kind of car they drive, what kind of clothes they wear, where they live, what they're interested in, what annoys them, what other brands that they like. And so if I do this for myself, I can see a really good idea of who my people are. And so, for example, if someone tells me, I'm a marketing company, right? But people I feel like they should tell me how to market my stuff all the time. If someone says, hey, you should get on Snapchat, I could say, no, my people are not on Snapchat. Like, we can look at this list and say, okay, maybe a couple of these women are on Snapchat, but not most of them. So am I going to invest a lot of time and effort setting up a new platform and building my audience there? Not really, because it's not where my people are. Now, if you answered these questions, your answers could be the complete opposite or completely different than mine. And that's the point. You can use this information to make decisions. Like, what should I call my upcoming workshop? And so, for example, if I look at my stuff, I know that somehow I work really well with artists. So my best-selling course ever has been Internet Marketing for Artists. And I named it that on purpose. My marketing course could be used by regular people, but I sort of used all the examples, and as I was setting up, I was thinking about artists. As I was doing it, I put it in the title, and it was a lot easier to sell to my audience. What social media site should I be using? I just used the Snapchat example, but, are my people water drinkers or coffee drinkers? So if I'm holding an event and want to do a giveaway, am I going to order coffee mugs or water bottles? I mean, I should be able to basically answer many questions if I know exactly who these people are, and if you put yourself in their place. Of course, you can always just ask them as well, but of course I work with people who aren't my quote unquote type, but being clear about who I resonate with helps me find more people that I work easily with. And like I said, that's not to say these are my only people. I just noticed that there's a certain pattern. I'm sure that you do too, about your business or nonprofit, the kinds of people that you attract. And here's the thing. Sometimes when I start working with people, they think, oh, I want to do marketing, but I don't really have much to say. And that's not really true. I think all of us have things to say. I mean, there's time-sensitive stuff to say, like, so if your hours are changing for an upcoming holiday, or you're having a sale, or you're releasing a product, right? That's kind of time-sensitive. But you have this other stuff that's sort of ongoing that you could be talking about. Like, you just paid a lot of money to have an annual report done for your nonprofit. And like 6 people went to that part of your website. So you know that a lot of people aren't seeing this report. So what you could do is you could, reshare that and other resources that you've created. I'm sure that there are certain causes and certain vendors that you like to work with and who you want to raise up. And you could be talking about them. You could be talking about your customers. You could be talking about the different marketing channels you're on. Yes, if you're on Facebook, you can let people know you're also on Twitter. It's so funny because some people are like, oh, I didn't know you had a YouTube channel. Like, I just shared my YouTube channel the other day, and my friends, a bunch of people subscribed to it. I like doubled my subscribers because people didn't know that I had a YouTube channel and they didn't know how to get to it. Letting people know about your consistent messaging, whether it's that you always source products ethically from a certain region of the world, whether it's that you offer free shipping on orders over $50. There are certain things that you can consistently say about your business that you think everybody knows, but they don't, because they're not you. And so what you need to do is just kind of put this all together and find a way to distribute it, because the thing is, you could tell, I think I read somewhere recently that I think it takes 14 interactions with someone before you make a sale. And that seems kind of ridiculous to me, but when you think about it, you're the only person that knows everything and is keeping an eye on everything. Most people have a ton of other things going on in their lives, so even though you posted that thing to Facebook 6 times, they might not have seen it yet. So feel free to, like I said, get the information out in multiple ways, and feel free to repeat it too. So plenty, no matter what kind of business or nonprofit you have, I'm sure that you have multiple things to say. I'm sure if you sat down and started listing these things, you could come up with 100 really easy. Now, the question is, so it's so funny because people get hung up on the tools, right? They're like, I don't know how to set up a website, or I don't know what to do on social media. But really what it is like, this is what you want to say, and these different tools help you to say it to the right people, or to say it more often, or to say it more effectively. And so today I'm just for the ease of like dividing up things based on what people are interested in, I have it divided up into the different tools for this workshop. But I could have easily like talked about, I guess, the kinds of things and the different ways to share them. But I thought, you know what, some people might come to this workshop or be watching this and be like, you know what, I'm not really super interested in websites, or I already have a website I really like and works well. And then you can just skip that section, or you can sort of space out for that part of the presentation. So I'm going to go over each one of these and then talk a little bit at the end, kind of bringing it together. So I thought this was interesting that e-commerce is growing. You know, it's almost, I mean, 23% every year, but almost half of American small businesses don't have websites. It's a big gap. So we see that, just because you don't have a website yet, and it's 2018, doesn't mean that you couldn't get one and still be a part of this massive growth. You're not, you can't say, oh, I should have done this 10 years ago. All right, maybe we should have all done it 10 years ago. The point is you're doing it now, and this curve is going up. So you can take advantage of that. Now, so this first part's about websites, and I've sort of divided it up into different sections. And the main part, and I think it keeps most people from doing websites, is all the decisions they have to make before they set it up. I'm sure it's kind of like building a house. Like you just make all these decisions, and then it comes together, and then you're like, oh, okay. So it can feel overwhelming. But let me just go through what some of these decisions are with you, and kind of feel like you're at least have some help making the major ones, and then it's just a matter of putting it together. The first thing is to decide, I think, what website software you're using. And we'll see in a second why this is a good first decision to make, because it affects a lot of other decisions that you're going to make. But I guess the two categories of websites are your sort of plug and play sort of commercial websites. So like a Squarespace or a Wix or a Shopify or I don't know, there's tons of website builders out there. And basically what you do is you create an account and you pick some kind of level of payment. I think they probably have a free thing for you to try. And then when you get to a certain either sized website or you want certain features, you start paying for it. And the pros of this, of course, are that it's really easy to set up. And typically when you buy a domain name and it's part of the whole price. You're paying for the whole thing kind of under one umbrella. And I will say, though, that I guess over time, the monthly costs compared to what you get tend to be a little bit higher. And you're sort of working within their framework. The example I use a lot is personal shopping. So if you walked into Nordstrom's, you could say, hey, I want a personal shopper. And that personal shopper will walk throughout Nordstrom's and bring you things in Nordstrom's that'll work for you. Now, let's say you say, well, I want a pair of polka dotted pants. And Nordstrom's doesn't have polka dotted pants. They might say, you know what, we don't have polka dotted pants, but we have these nice floral pants for you. Or we have these striped pants for you. So the point is you have to work within their parameters, right? Because they're a one-stop shop. So the good thing is they're a one-stop shop because, there's only one place to go. And the bad thing is they're just one company. And so there's only so much that one company can do. The other thing, and I never know what to call this, is like sort of like build your own or open source software, which is basically I go on WordPress.org. I download the software and I can put it on whatever domain I want. I can do whatever I want with it. The other two big ones are Drupal and Joomla. But there's tons of other what's called content management systems out there and other types of websites. The con, of course, is it's kind of a pain to set up because you got to have a little bit of technical knowledge because while it is free, you do need to do some stuff like buy a domain name and buy web hosting. But the software itself is free. And because it's open source and it's not used by a particular one company, lots of people are developing in it. So it's kind of like having a personal shopper that will go to any store for you. So if you're like, I want a pair of polka dotted pants and I have a WordPress personal shopper, that person can go to any store and find the pants that I want. So, they might not be at Nordstrom's, they might be somewhere else. So the point is that there's pros and cons to both. I will say for myself, in case it's helpful for you, I started with a plug and play website the first 3 or 4 years I was in business because I was just a marketing company at that point. I wasn't a web development company yet. But then when I realized okay, I looked up my template just for fun. And I was like, oh, how many bloggers in my niche are using my template? And I found out just within my blog space, just other people with the same topic as me, there was 4,000 people that were using my exact same design. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to stand out on the internet if I have the exact same design as 4,000 other people. So that's when I moved to my build your own. So what I recommend, honestly, most people start with, if you're the kind of person who knows exactly what you want and you want something that's a little bit more, complex or whatever, I would say skip right to the build your own, with an open source software. If you're just setting up an informational website, or what we call in the business a brochure website, it's like an online brochure, or you just don't quite know what you want yet, start with a plug and play website. Building your first website, you'll get a really good idea. It's probably like building your first house, what you like and what you don't like. And the next time you'll get what you want. And I know it's hard to think about, oh my God, I'm just about to design a website. I don't want to think about the next time. But the reality is a website is something that you're going to look at a lot and make changes to periodically. It's not something you're going to build and then not touch for 15 years. And we'll get into why in a second. But so pick your approach. And I would say the plug and play websites, Squarespace, I think is really good. And Shopify, if you're going to sell things, has a really good reputation as well. Those are my two kind of ones that I like. And the build your own, I really like WordPress. I've been working in it for almost 10 years. And I honestly haven't seen anything in it that I can't do. So those are just my recommendations for what it's worth. Now, every technical person, when they see the slide, like hates this slide. But when I explain it to regular people, they totally get it. So I'm keeping it in. But basically, when you get started with a website, you need to buy three things. Well, I shouldn't say you need to buy. There's kind of three parts to it. One is your domain name. That's whatever.com or whatever.org or whatever.us. It's basically you're buying your address. You're buying like a little P.O. box that you can send people to. Rather than sending people, say, to a static IP address. It's just a little easier to remember. Domain names are really cheap. They're like, I think I just bought one. It was like $8 or something. Some domain extensions cost a little more. I think .orgs cost a little bit more money. But if someone's charging you more than $25 a year, I would say take a look at that, see what you're getting for that price. The other thing that you buy is your web hosting, and I equate that to like a plot of land. This is where your website's going to live. This is where your email is going to live. And it's kind of invisible to most people, but you need to stick your website and other things somewhere, and this is what you're buying. Now, when you use a Squarespace or a Wix or a Shopify, they're giving you the address and the plot of land as part of what you're paying for. That's like part of their deal. When you're setting out for yourself, you have to buy these things for yourself. I will say that most web hosting companies also sell domains and vice versa. So you can usually use one company to buy both of these things. So web hosting for the average small business website, I would say it's about $100 a year. If you're paying way more than that, please let's talk and let's understand what you're paying for. So I pay I think I pay like $80 a year and I have 10 gigabytes of space, which is a fair bit. My website, I think, takes up like 2, and that's just because it has a bunch of junk on it. I could probably clean it off and probably get it down to 1 gigabyte. And then my email, right, takes up some room too. So 10 is more than enough for me, and that's like I said, $100 a year, something like that. So if you look at your total ongoing costs for your address and your your domain name and your web hosting, you're looking at like $130, $150 a year. And so that's just to keep your site online. It's not that bad if you think about it as a monthly cost. The other thing, and this is a lot more subjective, is the house that you put on the plot of land. Now, you could have put a big sprawling house on the plot of land. You could put a bunch of little tiny houses. It's up to you. And that's what people see. So is your website. It's sitting on the little plot of land, and it's sitting at the address that you purchased for it. And yeah, so the software could be free. Like I said, WordPress.org. You can download it, you can put it on your web hosting and with your domain name, and you're in business. Or you could use a service like a Squarespace for something like $10 or $20 a month, and you're paying for that. So those are kind of the three. The website typically is not an ongoing cost. It's something you usually set up unless you're using a builder, like I said, like a Wix or a Squarespace, which will charge you a monthly fee, and sort of incorporate all of these things together into like one fee. So just know those are your costs, and whatever service you sign up for, you're going to get a yearly bill for $100. Oh, that's my web hosting. Okay, that makes sense. That's the only reason I go over this slide, because it's nice to know what you're paying for. I will say I've seen some people do the free site, so they'll be like, oh, I'm going to use like blogspot.com, and I'm just going to make a free website. So mybusiness.blogspot.com. I will say that makes you kind of look like you're being really cheap, and maybe you're not a real serious business owner. If we look back, it's $150 a year to keep your site online, something like that. I mean, you buy other things for your business. I think in terms of the amount it costs versus what it could do for you, I think it's pretty good. So also you can have your own email address. So I can be Nicole at breakingeveninc.com and not I love cats924 at gmail.com. You know, it's a lot easier to email a business person at their business address and feels like they can take you seriously versus some free account that may have a silly name in it. So pony up for a real website. It doesn't have to cost that much. It really doesn't, especially if you're willing to set it up for yourself. Okay, so now that I've sort of sold you the fact that a website's great, there's, you know, some things to think about. The word that you're looking for, if you're using a Wix or a Squarespace, or even if you're using WordPress and you're saying, okay, I have all these themes in WordPress I can use, look for something that is responsive, okay? And what that means is it automatically is adjusting to whatever screen size and resolution that it's on. So you can tell if a website's responsive, by the way, if you go open up a website in a browser and just resize the browser, you should be able to see it changing. Like this is the Boston Globe example that I screenshotted, but there are other, you know, but that's how you can tell a website's responsive, is it responds as you resize your browser window. Another thing people do sometimes when they're like, okay, I want a mobile-friendly website, but I really don't have the energy to make this happen yet, is they just make a separate mobile site. So they have like their regular site and then they have the mobile version of their website, which may have things like directions, hours, that kind of thing. So when they make a change, they make it on their regular website and then they make it on their mobile website. So they have to do it kind of twice. But sometimes this is a good stopgap measure for, you know, if you want to be mobile friendly but just aren't quite there yet and want to do something kind of cheaper, that can be a good. And I think there's a few mobile website builders. The one I'm thinking of is Dada Mobile or something, and it's like $10 a month, and it'll make you can make a mobile website with it. But just kind of put it in your mind that most people access the internet increasingly on a mobile device. I would say now the majority of Americans. So making sure your website's mobile friendly is probably a good idea to do in the next year or so. And then, you got to think about what you want to put on your website in terms of useful information. And I know it feels silly because you are writing this stuff and you think, oh, I already know all this, but stick a picture of what your business looks like, the front of your business, so that if someone's, driving around looking for it, they know what they're looking for. Post your hours, post your phone number, post your mailing address. I mean, think about anything anybody's ever asked you and make sure it's available on your site in terms of information. And besides having useful information on your site, which is why people go to it, your website also should probably have some kind of purpose. Like what do you want people to do when they get to your website? And this in the business is called a call to action. So like, what is the thing if every website visitor did it that you would be super excited about? And it could be giving you your email address, buying a product, liking you on Facebook. I'm trying to think of, there's tons of different calls to action that you can have. And typically what you should do is if you look at a site, you should be able to tell what the major call to action is, or maybe there's 2 or 3. So if we look at this site, and again, I'm not saying these are the most effective websites. I just grabbed a few screenshots. Typically what people do is they're like, okay, well, the search is kind of front and center, right? And that's a really good point. So they do want you to search or be able to find what you're looking for right away. The cute little tote bag, it's a shopping bag, okay, they want you to put things in your shopping bag. And then kind of the big obvious thing to me, if I was going to say what is the thing that LL Bean wants me to do, is I see that they want me to use my LL Bean Visa card. So they want me to apply for an LL Bean Visa card. So to save money. So they probably, if I was going to pick one thing they really wanted me to do when I got to this page, it would be that. Now we could go look at LL Bean now versus when I took the screenshot, and it might have a different call to action. So maybe around Christmas, they kind of push the Christmas thing, for example. So think about your call to action being something that can change. And speaking of Christmas, I watched a lot of Hallmark Channel with my mom. So I thought the site was a little bit confusing because clearly they they have to sell advertising, right? Like that's part of how they make money. So the Folgers thing is kind of front and center. It's not a Folgers website, it's a Hallmark movies and mysteries site. But I can also see, like, okay, like it wants me to um, watch a preview of this movie or find out more about this Christmas special, I guess. It wants me to visit Folgers.com. And again, if you're selling ads, like if that's part of how you make money, like having an ad be front and center might be something that's really important to your ad client. But just thinking about kind of like, okay, when someone sees my website, what do they move to do? And if you're not sure, you could just buy a college student a couple of slices of pizza and have them navigate your site and don't say anything and give them something to do. And I recently did this with a site I was working on for myself. Not just college students, but just people. I just had pizzas, I had people show up, and I gave them something to do. So I'm like, okay, I want you to pretend you're send a gift to your mom. And I gave them like a fake credit card number they could use or whatever to go through the process. And I said, just go through the site. And then I just watched them navigate the site. Or I'm sure I could have had them take a screen capture like I'm doing now for this presentation. And just watch how people navigate your site. And you may notice something that you can make a lot easier for people by adding a button or by making it a little bit more clear. Just a couple of design conventions when you're doing website stuff. The search is usually in the upper right corner. And I'm sure now that I've told you that, if you go to multiple websites, you'll see that that's typically where they put search. And that's actually where your eye first goes when you get to a website. And I thought that that was kind of interesting because I know that, at least in the US, we read from, left to right. So I would think that the upper left corner would be the first thing I looked at. But apparently on a website, it's the upper right corner. That's where they typically put the search box or a little search thing, a little magnifying glass, The navigational menu, just like how people get around the site, is usually on the left or on the top. I think if you put it on the right, people wouldn't know it was a navigational menu. They would think it was just a list of links. That most websites use text and visual navigation. And what I mean by that is, here they have a slide, right? Which is like a visual thing, but they also have text that says, watch a preview. So by giving people on LL Bean, they have the shopping bag little tote bag. They also have, sale. I could click on sale and go to the things that were on sale. So you want to think, some people use images to look around a site. Some people use text. So to think about both of those types of people as you're building your site, having the logo or name of your site in the either upper left or center of your website, and limiting the color palette and fonts to keep things unified. You don't want people to go on different pages and like your first page is black and then your next page is blue, and then like they won't feel like they're on the same website. So you want to make some, consistent design choices so that as someone browses your site, they feel like they're still in the right building, so to speak. So I will just say people get really hung up on getting this exactly right before they quote unquote launch. But the reality is, like, just get something out there that doesn't look like terrible and you're way ahead of the game. Make something to start. You can always come back to it. You can always add more to it. You can always rewrite the homepage content, whatever, later. Just, spend a good afternoon and just get things to where you think they're passable and just put it out there. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about e-commerce, right? And the fact that a lot of people are buying online. And thinking about e-commerce a few different ways is not a terrible idea. By the way, I just kind of made up the names of these things, but you can look up any of these examples as I get into them to learn more about them. But the first place a lot of people use to set up an online cart is some kind of third-party marketplace. And when I say third-party marketplace, I just mean that people are already on this website selling stuff, and you just make an account and you add your stuff. So whether it's eBay or Amazon or Etsy or Teespring or Society6 or whatever. And the advantage of this is that they're relatively easy to set up because, like I said, you make an account and then you just follow the directions to add your products. And some of the decisions have been made for you, which can be fantastic if you're feeling a little bit of decision fatigue. And clearly there are customers already there because they're looking at other stuff. But the cons are, of course, you're using their system. So sometimes you can't get your customer information out. So, for example, if you wanted the email address of everybody who ever bought from you on Amazon, from your Amazon store, can't get it. Just it's stuck in their system and they want it that way. They don't want you to take your customers and go somewhere else. So, and because it's on somebody else's website, you can't control the experience. And lots of other people that are selling stuff, i.e., your competition, are also on these websites. So, I'm sure we've all seen examples of this. Typically, like I said, if you went to a bunch of different Etsy sites, they all look really similar. You can change the name, you can change the photos, and clearly the products you're selling, but the layout is really similar, and people can easily browse kind of from one thing to another. So I think we're all pretty familiar with this because maybe we've had experience doing this before. The other thing is you can have your own cart that you set up that's not on Amazon, that's not on eBay or whatever. A popular online shopping cart software is Shopify. And the idea is that you are kind of building your own cart. So, and there is a relatively low cost and time commitment because it's easy to start. And you don't have any of your competitors on your site because you're building the thing for you. And I will say that because of this, though, because there is nobody already there buying things, you have to send people to your cart. They have to know that it's there. They have to know they can go and buy things there. So that can be a bit of a steeper curve. Now, basically, this whole plug and play cart versus a cart with your own website software, they're very similar. I'm just differentiating from them because sometimes people will have a basic website set up and then they'll say, oh, you know what, I'll just throw on a Shopify cart. And it's separate technically from their website, but they're just linked. The website is linked to their cart. So technically it's like a separate thing. Whereas if you had WordPress, you would log in and be able to see, if you added a WooCommerce cart, you'd be able to kind of see everything in one interface and it's all kind of integrated together. And the pros of that is that you control the entire customer experience and you keep your data. But the cons are that since you're setting the whole thing up, it's kind of a pain in the butt. And you have to set up some kind of form because you're taking the payment directly. And because Shopify is not doing it or eBay is not doing it, you have to set up some kind of online payment processing. Now, these used to be really expensive. So if you looked at this like 5 years ago and decided, no, I totally get it. But now it's way less expensive. Braintree Payments just got bought by PayPal, so I'm not sure how I feel about them. But Stripe.com, there's no setup fee, there's no monthly fee, and they charge 2.9% plus 30 cents a transaction. So it's a lot like Square. If you're familiar with Square for like swiping payments, this is like the online version of Square, essentially. It's a different company. It's very similar in that you don't have the ongoing fees and that you're only paying when you process a payment. The other option, and it's so funny because a lot of people don't think of it this way. They come to me and they say, Nicole, I need a cart. And I'm like, oh, what are you selling? They're like, oh, copies of my self-published book. Or I have 3 kinds of pasta sauce. And I'm like, okay, well, we don't necessarily need a whole like cart that calculates people's shipping and that like cross-sells other items. And you just need a form that takes a payment because you're selling either a limited amount of things or you're selling like just, something kind of simple, or you're just taking a donation for your organization or you want people to be able to buy gift certificates and that's it. Basically like it's a very simplified buying process. So you can just set up a payment form and it's essentially a form that takes a payment without having all the bells and whistles of a cart. So, you can set up, like I said, an online donation form and you can do things with it like take recurring donations if you want, or have people be able to give donations in the name of somebody, whatever. You basically make the form collect whatever information that you want and you can take the payment right there. People are on one page, they make their payment, they make their donation, and then they get sent to another kind of thank you thing afterward. And then kind of like something like you saw with my example with the potatoes, you see that people use social media to initiate selling, but they kind of do they do the deed in real life, So you use social media to kind of organize the people who are going to buy things and then you deliver it to them and take payment in real life. as you see, most people aren't using social media to buy things. Like they're not like shopping on Facebook or whatever. I'm not saying we won't get there, but we haven't gotten there yet. Um, so it can be a little bit confusing. Like the potatoes thing, like I had like 14 people who were interested, and then a couple people were like, well, I already got potatoes. So it turned into this whole like thing I had to manage. So I said, yeah, I sold them in 5 minutes, but it really, in terms of delivering them and all that, took a little bit longer. So, um, like I said, but it is something to initiate the sales process anyway. But basically, what you want to do online is show your customers that you're open to selling something online, at least even starting the interaction online, whether you want to take a payment or not. You could have a form, for example, we work with a campground, and she is adamantly opposed to taking payment, but she has like this form that just asks them, like, okay, what kind of site do you want? Like, do you need a site for a camper or a tent? What dates are you coming? Um, what's your name? How many children are in the group? How many adults are in the group? So she basically gets the information that she needs so that when she calls them back and confirms, it's a much shorter conversation. It's just a matter of taking a credit card number and she's done. Um, so let people at least begin the process online because, they might be looking at your website at 11 o'clock at night and they want to buy something. You want to capture that. People are starting to buy on social media. I am seeing that, like, typically things start with apps. So, and then they kind of move to quote unquote real products. I'm not saying apps aren't real products, but they are virtual. So I am seeing Facebook apps that drive ads that drive app downloads for payment. So I think that it'll eventually, and I also know that you can send people payment within Facebook chat. So there is that. And there's basically now, with the plug and play software and with this cheaper online payment processing, there's a lot of really great options for selling online now that weren't even available even a few years ago. So it's a good thing to revisit. Oh, this is the campground thing I was telling you guys about. So she doesn't take any payment. It's just a contact thing. And that's it. The great thing, though, about just getting people to your website in general is that you can see what they do. So this is Google Analytics, which I'll talk about in a second. This is called, I think, a visualization funnel. I think that's what they call it. So what we're able to see is that people click on View Shopping Cart, and then we're able to see how many people drop off and how many people proceed to log in. So as you see, this cart is making people log in before they buy, and a bunch of people are dropping off when they get to that screen because I'm sure they think, oh, I don't want to create a whole account just to buy something. So I'm wondering if they took away that login, how many people would go on to place an order. But basically, because we have send people to our own website, we can track them from there. Your website is the source of amazing data, and Google Analytics is a good free solution that allows you to see this data. So that's just a screenshot from somebody's Google Analytics. You can make a free account and you can add this to your website. But basically, the categories are like audience, like who's coming to the website. Are they on a mobile device, or are they on a tablet, or are they on a computer? What country are they in? What language do they speak? Acquisition, how do they get to their website? Did they use search engines? Did they use social media? Behavior, what did they do once they got to your website? What pages did they look at? What pages did they exit on? How long did they spend on the site? And then conversions, if you set them up. Did they convert? So did they fill out the form you wanted them to fill out? Did they buy a product? That kind of thing. But the conversion thing is something you have to set up additionally. It's not automatically built in when you set up your Google. When you go to google.com/analytics and set up a free account, it doesn't automatically know what you think is important. So you have to tell it when you finish setting it up. I will say there's limits to this. First of all, it's aggregate data. It's not like you can follow, it's not like, oh, Sally comes onto your website and you can follow how she navigates it. It's like, okay, the average person, it's like this many people went to this page, this many people went to this page. You can't follow one user throughout the site. And the real-time data is a little bit limited. So I will say there are some limits, and I'll talk about remarketing in a bit. But, so you may ask yourself, okay, I get why making a website is important, especially after I see the amount of data that's available to me. How do I get people to my website? And that's a little thing, mainly, I guess what we would call, besides I guess online marketing generally, is search engine optimization, or SEO. To me, SEO is one of the things that I hate using the word, but it's something people are looking for. And I think it's a word that a lot of people throw around to try to make things sound really confusing. I'm not saying it's not a whole science. I do have a whole workshop that's just SEO. So if you wanted to learn more and enjoy my delivery, you could check that out. But basically, to overly simplify it, search engines want three things. They want words people are looking for. They want links to other websites, and they want frequently updated content. Let's go over each one of these. So you may ask yourself, well, how do I know what words people are searching for? There's a bunch of what are called keyword research tools. Most of them, by the way, will give you like a 2-week free trial. So when you think you're ready to do this, wait till then, and then sign up for one of the, like, keyword discovery is one of them. Sign up for your 2-week free trial or your 1-week free trial and do all your keyword research during your free trial. But the other thing you can do if you want something kind of simple is you can just go to Google Trends and you can just type in some words. And so I just did one here, landscape painting, landscape paintings for sale, landscape painters. So if I wanted to pick between referring to landscape painters and referring to landscape painting, I would clearly use painting because it has way more searches, right? It just makes sense. And I see that the word nature paintings like has no sales, so I would want to refer to landscape and not nature in my paintings. You can do this with anything, by the way. And if you scroll further down after you do this, it will give you other related terms that you can also look up. So at a certain point, you'll just have a really good list of like, okay, these are the words that people use when they're looking for my stuff. And what you want to do is use those words on your website. So rather than saying, okay, everybody, I think you should refer to my line of work as this, rather than trying to educate, you can just say, okay, people are using these words. I'm just going to use them too, so that people can find me. So you want to use these words on your web page content, in your blogs, on other websites when you write about what you do. But don't, this is called keyword stuffing, when you try to put as many keywords into something as possible. By the way, this website's offline. I just used this super old screenshot, but it shows you what it's like. If you want to make your vacation in Ellsworth, Maine, you can also use Northeast Harbor, Southwest Harbor, Maine, It's just like, it's like a robot wrote it. Nobody wants to read that. And Google will penalize you for it, so don't do it. Besides using words that people are using to search for your site and sprinkling them like a delicious sea salt on your website and not dousing them, you also want links coming into your website. Links coming into your website are other websites saying, hey, this is good. It's so good, I'm linking to it. And think about it. If you were Google and someone was searching for something, and one website had 2 links coming into it and one had 200, and they seemed very similar otherwise, which one would you show them? You'd show them the 200 one, right? Makes sense. 200 people think this thing is cool and only 2 people think this is cool. Well, we're going to crowdsource the coolness and figure the 200 links one is probably better. Now, the other thing about this, by the way, Google PageRank is not something that is used really anymore. I just wanted to use this to illustrate my point here. So basically, not all links are created equal. Some websites have a lot more traffic and clout than other websites. And so Google PageRank is like a way that you can sort of tell that. So the numbers range from 1 to 10. So Google is a 10. Amazon is a 9, just to give you an idea. Probably, I don't know, the New York Times might be like an 8 or something. We can look these up. We can look up Google PageRank and then type in a website and it'll tell you. My website is a 3, and it's been stuck at a 3 for like 5 or 6 years. So a link coming from Oprah.com versus my website is probably going to be worth more to you, the Oprah one versus me, because I have a feeling Oprah is higher ranked than I am. That's why when people get written about, like in the New York Times or something, they get super excited because that link coming in is worth a lot in terms of their site. If you want to know what sites are linking to you already, there's a couple of ways to do that. If you have Google Analytics, which I talked about earlier, you can just go under the referral section, but also you can just go in Google and type in link : and then your domain name, and it'll tell you everything that's linking to your domain. The other thing too that you can do if you want something that's like kind of in a spreadsheet and a little bit more easy to read is you can just look up free backlink checker. and in Google, and it'll pull up a bunch of free tools that will check all the links linking back to your site and give them to you in a list. A lot of getting links has to do with doing stuff on your website that people want to link to, but some of it is just remembering to link to your own website through social media, using opportunities you have, like through wholesalers or chambers of commerce or other people that you pay that you have a link, and making free listings like in Google, Yahoo, and Bing. All the search engines have free listings. TripAdvisor and Yelp and other review sites also have free listings. You can put email address in your signature, or you can put your website address in your signature, email signature. So all that to say is just like, think about, okay, how am I getting links to go to my website? And am I doing all the ones I can? And the final thing is that web search engines look for frequently updated content. Again, with the two website scenario, if one website that Google is considering to show you was updated a week ago and the other one was updated 6 months ago, Google's more likely to show you the one that was updated more recently because it thinks it's more relevant. Again, I get that this may or may not be true, but it's good to know, right? Basically, the reason why a lot of people blog, I mean, I blog because I like to write, but a lot of reasons that people blog is because it basically kills all those search engine birds with one stone. It is words that people are looking for, right, written in the blog posts. It's links from other websites, so people are more likely to link to a useful blog post maybe than your company website. And blogs are also frequently updated. So basically, a blog is a great search engine thing that you can do for your site. That is relatively low tech in terms of like you don't have to do anything really crazy, but it is something that takes time to, of course, to maintain. There are infinite parameters that you can adjust to try to play the search engine game, and there's a list of them here. And the reason I guess that a lot of people care is that most website traffic comes from search. So doing better in search helps your website be more findable generally. Now, the other thing to just a couple of last things to remember are that if you are on a mobile device and you do a search and there is a mobile-friendly website and there's a non-mobile-friendly website, the mobile-friendly website will rank higher. And that totally makes sense, right? Like, why would Google want to send you to a website that wasn't going to load well on your device? So that's another reason to have a mobile-friendly site. And basically, if you're using Google Analytics like I do, and you notice that Google starts tracking something, like I noticed it added page load time as a whole thing. And then I noticed it broke out social media as a separate category. If Google's tracking it, it's probably important. And basically, different search engines rank different factors differently during different periods of time. That's why you can do a search for something in Google, Yahoo, and Bing and get different results, because different search engines rank things slightly differently. And like I said, you can get into the minutia of it, or you can just say, you know what, I know these main things are really important, and I'm going to just keep my site up to date and really interesting, and you'll probably do well. Part 2, social media. So there's a psychological thing of why people like social media. And you have a few options in terms of social networks or social media websites that you can use. And we're talking about picking those and setting some goals. And I guess I'm not really going to do an abbreviated guide to the social networks, but I am going to talk about a few things to keep in mind as you're using them. So social media stimulates dopamine because it's rewards people with little bits of information randomly, if you think about it. So I thought it was interesting too that tweeting can be more addictive than some highly addictive substances. And besides dopamine, it also raises your levels of oxytocin. And this higher level of oxytocin contributes to lower stress levels, trust, empathy, generosity, those kind of things. So if you think about like the dopamine and the oxytocin, like social media is it's kind of addictive. People are on there and they want to spend more time there than they're already spending. So social media, of course, is good for proof, right? So people can recommend you, write reviews, that kind of thing. You can send people to your website from social media, which build links back to your site. You clearly build relationships with people over social media, which may eventually become your customers or a supplier or something like that. And you can communicate information different ways, right? You can use videos, images, short sentences, links, and you can test a message across a group of people through social media, and of course, get new customers. So you may think, okay, Nicole, there's like a gazillion social media websites out there. How do I pick which ones I'm going to use? Because I can't use them all. And I'm right there with you. I certainly do not use them all as well. I have to sort of use all of them a little bit because of what I do for work, but there are certain ones that work way better for me, and I spend more time on those. So option one to pick social media websites is to think about your audience. So just like any sort of party, if you think about social media, there are different kinds of people on these different websites. You can go for Facebook as you see, the most popular, but there's some other ones as well. We can look at things by age. So we see that if we look at like Snapchat, which is like the fourth one down, we see that almost 50% of Snapchat's users are under 25, right? Whereas if we look at LinkedIn, hold on, yep. So if we look at LinkedIn, we see that close to 20% of them are over the age of 65. So if you have an idea of how old your customer is, excuse me, you can probably have a really good idea of which accounts you can rule out right now. Social media by gender. So a lot of them are pretty close to 50-50, as is the population. But there are certain ones that are kind of a little bit more male-dominated and some that are a little bit more female-dominated. We can look at income level. So basically, all this to say is it makes sense to be where your customers are. And of course, if you're not sure, I guess you could just ask your customers what sites they use. But hopefully looking at a couple of those charts gave you a really good idea of like, okay, maybe these two or three might be good ones for me to be on. You can also pick a social media site based on the type of content you want to share. So for example, YouTube, you have to share a video. You can't share anything else. So if you're not going to do video stuff, it's kind of hard for you to maybe be on YouTube, unless you're going to be a really prolific commenter or something. Whereas something like Facebook, you can pretty much share anything. So if you think about the kinds of stuff you want to share and think about how people use the different networks to share that, it'll give you a really good idea. So if you only did a lot of events, I might use Facebook because Facebook has an events thing that you can use with Facebook pages. So you can add information about your event, and events are searchable. I might not use Twitter. I might use Facebook. I might use something specific for events like Eventbrite. I might also, yeah, I guess those are the two I would think of offhand. But and I might make a short video, I guess, previewing what the event was going to be like and share it on YouTube and link back to the event registration from there. So those might be the three things that I would do if I was just mainly marketing events. But you'll notice, I guess, that there's a mixture of general websites that a lot of people are on, that you can share a lot of different kinds of stuff. And then there's very specific social media sites for certain kinds of content, like YouTube or like Spotify, which is a way to share music. And then finally, you can pick a social media site based on subject. So you can look up, let's pretend that you were really interested in the paleo diet, okay? So what you could do is you could look up paleo on the social networks and you could see how much conversation was happening about that subject. So if nobody's talking about it, I guess sure, you could bring it up, but you could also just say, you know what, maybe people on this site don't want to talk about paleo diets. And you can look at different things, is there groups on the social media site around this? Is there, is it a trending topic? Are people using specific hashtags related to it? Are people taking out ads based on it? So all that to say is like, if there is any of these things going on a particular social network, you know that probably that topic is being discussed. So, personally, our company recommends that you be on like 3 social networks. And what that does is that gets you in front of different people, or it gets in front of maybe a couple of the same people different ways. It's kind of like spreading risk. It's like you wouldn't take all your money and dump it into one stock, right? you would spread it out, and that way if one stock started tanking, you'd still have the other ones to keep you going. Um, so you just try stuff out. Like I said, if there was some formula that magically worked for everybody, I'd be lying on a beach right now fanning myself with $100 bills. But the reality is that different things work for different people, and you got to give it some time for it to work. I've had a few clients who insisted on 3-month contracts, and they've never been happy with them. And as I was doing it, I was like, I don't know if we'll have enough time to see results. It takes people a while to notice things. So you want to just give it a good 6 months, honestly. And then what you want to do is kind of have an idea of what you want to get out of this too. Like what's going to make you happy. Because if at the end of 6 months it doesn't do that, then you'll know, okay, well, maybe I should be doing something else. So just give an idea, and not just more, just like maybe a certain number. Like, okay, if I had, 1,000 website visitors from Facebook in the next 6 months, I feel like that was a really good use of my time. Or if I noticed that, our events had 25% more people at them, um, and that's something you've actually been measuring. So all that to say is like write it down and give yourself 6 months, and that'll help you evaluate whether you should keep doing the thing or not. And there's tons of social media websites. I'm certainly not listing them all here, but I don't want to go over them all in detail, but I just want to talk about a couple of things related to most of them. First of all, you probably have noticed that Facebook limits who sees your posts. So if you look, for example, at a post that I did, you see 35 people reached. Okay, but if you look at the number of likes, which is kind of in the upper right corner, you see 663 people. So you're like, okay, 35 out of 663. Like, why didn't 663 people see it? And the reason is that Facebook will show your post to between 2 and 3% of your audience. Because what they want you to do is they want you to pay for ads, because that's how they make their money. So if you want to avoid paying, you can either just be super interesting all the time, which is hard to do, or you can just repeat the same message a few times to make sure that people see it or have a chance to see it. So don't be afraid of repeating, because only 2 to 3% of your people are going to see anything at all. And based on how they react. So let's say that like I posted this thing and a bunch of people liked it. It would show it to more people. That's why whenever anyone like gets engaged or gets a puppy, you always see it. It's because a bunch of people liked and commented. And so Facebook's algorithm says, oh, this must be really important, so let's show it to more people. Most social networks are heading toward this algorithmic model, which is to say that based on interactions or based on shares and that kind of thing, that it will show it to more people or it'll show it to less people. You can't just go on Facebook and see, okay, I want to see everything that everyone's posted in the order it's been posted. It just isn't possible. And like I said, most social networks are catching up to this and saying, okay, well, we want to serve people relative content and ads, so we're going to switch to an algorithm. Instagram's experimenting with it right now, I believe. I think Twitter is also kind of, it's so funny how like nobody wants to really announce that they're doing this, but because it makes them sound like they're trying to hide information from you. It seems a little less democratic, but if we say algorithm, it's like, okay, that sounds technical and nice. So what you want to do is, because most social networks are heading toward this, try posting the same thing, different days, different times, different formats, to just see what works. You'll be able to look at your data and see how many people saw it, how many people commented on it, that kind of thing. So you might see like, oh, you know what, Tuesday mornings are really good for us. That might be something you find out. I don't know. You have to test it out. And like I said, post the same thing multiple times. People, A, are not going to notice, or B, if they do notice, they're not going to remember that they saw it. And C, if they did see it again, they're like not going to be like, hey, you already shared this. That's literally never happened to us. Ask people to share your most important items. If you say please share for everything, you're like that person who marks every email as urgent, and people are going to be annoyed. But if you have something really important coming up, like your annual fundraiser or like a big, party, you can say, hey, can you please share this? And if you do it sparingly, people will actually do it for you. And typically video gets a lot of engagement generally. Instagram has added 60-second videos to things. YouTube is the second most used search engine after Google. So typically, if you're thinking about content type, think about video. So one of my friends was the director of this downtown organization, and she noticed that she sent out this beautiful little thing about how to let them promote the community event. and nobody looked at it. So she made a video and talked about the different ways to do it. And she got, if we look here, we see that the video got 694 views, 23 reactions, and 2 comments. Now, did the beautiful flyer she did about this exact same thing get the same amount of reaction? No, but video is popular. Now, you may come to the point where you say, hey, Nicole, I want to link to something that's not on my website. So, for example, I am helping the Humane Society set up their annual, fundraising thing. And I want to link, but I want to see like whether the thing I link to is actually driving traffic. There is a link tracking service called Bitly. It's free. And you can use these tracking links, basically places that won't tolerate regular links, but also you can use them like on Facebook and stuff and see what people click on. Every time that I talk about short links, I always use this example because it cracks me up every time. It's like this kid who's like asking for something for Christmas, and he's like writing the Amazon link in crayon. You know how long those things can be. So an example of this in my real life is I worked with a local theater company. I had no access to their website, so I couldn't actually tell like who was looking and who was buying tickets. But what I could do was do a couple of promo videos, and you can probably tell when they came out, and link to where people could buy tickets. So if you want to show the effectiveness of a campaign, if and you know that the person that you're helping maybe doesn't have website tracking or Google Analytics like you do, you can use these tracking links and send people to websites that aren't yours and have an idea of how many people clicked on them. Kind of handy. The other thing I'll say is there's certain social networks that almost no one uses. And so if you use them a little bit, sometimes it can be a way to get in front of some more people. So I know I like to post to LinkedIn about once a week because most people, I don't know if you get a LinkedIn weekly digest. At least I do anyway. I keep forgetting to unsubscribe from it, so it comes to my email every week. And anybody who's posted any sort of status update is kind of in your digest. So if you have some connections and you just want to get, in front of them once a week, you can just post something on LinkedIn. It'll aggregate it. And the other thing is Google set up its own social network called Google Plus that, from what I can tell, no real person uses, but everyone uses for search engine benefits. So what I do is I just hop on Google Plus and link back to my own website like once a week, just to build that because Google is going to reward you for using its social network. So I guess in a world where everyone's zigging, try zagging. Sometimes it's try posting things at really weird times. Like you can schedule something to go online at 2 a.m. Or like I said, if everyone is doing, one thing, try another thing. Be disruptive. Pretty much every social media platform has a way to schedule posts. You can do it right within Facebook. And I can maybe show you how to do that here really briefly. So let me just go on one of my pages. Now, some of these are built into the actual social media platform, like for example, this, but some of them aren't. So for example, you can't really schedule pins in Pinterest or Instagram photos, but there is software that lets you do it. And even if it costs a couple of bucks a month, it is totally worth it. So, okay, so Facebook update. Now what I can do is I can click on this. By the way, I would want something a little bit more prolific than that. And I can click on schedule. And I can tell it when to schedule, and it'll save it as a draft. And so at any point, I can go back and I can edit it before it goes live. It's like, oh, are you sure you don't want to post that? Yeah, I'm pretty sure, Facebook, that I do not want to post that. So, one that we use is like Buffer, and there's Meet Edgar. There's also Hootsuite. Like I said, most of them cost like $5 to $10 a month. Some of them kind of like the ones we use cost a little bit more than that, but it's really worth a couple of bucks a month to make sure that the updates go out. Even think about it, even if it saves you 2 hours a month, isn't that worth like $10 to you? It's certainly worth it to me. Also, most social media websites have groups. So Facebook has groups, LinkedIn has groups. Twitter sort of has groups, like with hashtags. Like there are certain people who will use certain hashtags and have a conversation, like in a group. So typically, groups are a bit of a softer sell. If you ask someone to like your Facebook business page, well, that's all you all the time. If you're in a group, there's a little bit more give and take. Um, so a lot of people do this if they're, say, a personal trainer and they're, or they're a motivational business, excuse me, a motivational business person or something. Um, and consider being a part of non-obvious groups. It's one thing to be a part of a group where there's lots of people in your profession in it, but let's say you're a massage therapist. Why not join the local computer networking group? Because those people are on a computer all the time, and chances are, if they're like me, their body is completely ravaged by being on a computer all the time. And so by being the massage therapist that's in that group, they're gonna and potentially contributing to ways they can, if someone's complaining about their shoulder hurting or something, and you send them a link to a stretch or something like that, then suddenly you're, in front of a group of people that are willing to buy something from you. So use social media groups. Like I said, you don't have to be really sleazy about it, but just know that they exist and that you could potentially be using them, because I think a lot of people sort of underuse them. As I mentioned, video is really hot right now. I remember like seeing that the average mobile viewing session was 40 minutes and thinking that was completely nuts. But then I remember, like, when I watch things on my phone, how I'll watch a 5-minute video, and then I'll watch another 5-minute video, and then another, and pretty soon, yeah, 40 minutes. Yeah, that sounds about right. So if there is a way that you can communicate your message over video, I think it's a nice thing to be able to do. People appreciate it. They appreciate the accessibility of that content, and they appreciate the how, it's a lot easier and quicker to watch a video than it is to read through a lot of text. And when you're putting your video online, just consider adding like closed captions to your video. Both Facebook and YouTube will let you generate them automatically, and then you can just edit them versus having to generate them entirely yourself. Add really detailed descriptions in the video so that people like know what's in it and can get to the resources you mentioned, that kind of thing. So consider making, you can just slap on a video, but consider adding a little bit more because people will appreciate it. And this is certainly not, I didn't list every social network. Like I said earlier, there are some big ones, or some small ones, or some really specific ones. But basically, if you can think of something, there's probably a social network for it. And like I said, I'm kind of ignoring Snapchat for the moment because I think it's hard for businesses to find applications. And you'll notice that Facebook and Instagram are having these stories. So Facebook and Instagram stories are basically like Snapchat within those two platforms. So I have a feeling that this might overtake Snapchat, or at least just compete with it. So I'm kind of waiting to see who wins there. So you can check your social media stats only as they pertain to your goals. Like, it's really easy to be like, oh, 150 people looked at this post. I mean, that's nice to feel popular, but like, did they buy anything? I don't know. It's just something to think about. Think about your goals and go for that. Email marketing, surprisingly, is not dead, and there are definitely ways that you can use it for yourself. The thing with email is that pretty much everybody has an email address, especially if they're buying anything online. They might not want to join Facebook. They might not visit your website every second. But an email address is pretty much the way that you can directly follow up with someone after the fact. And that's why that most every marketing company or whatever, everybody wants your email address. And that's the reason. Email marketing does have analytics, so you can actually see like who opens it and all that stuff. And you can reach out, like I said, you can reach any customer with an email address is who you can reach. And you can communicate with people regularly, and it is sitting in their inbox, so it's not interrupting them. They can save it for later. And in general, I think I read somewhere that like 80-something% of people have an email newsletter that they look forward to getting, which I think is kind of crazy. But so email is good for that. It's a kind of marketing that people aren't super annoyed by. What you have to do is you have to collect email addresses in a way that is CAN-SPAM compliant. That was a law passed in 1999 that says that your email marketing template has to have a one-click unsubscribe. It has to have a physical address somewhere in your email template. And I think there's a couple of other things. But what most people do, rather than remembering everything, is they use a CAN-SPAM compliant service like Constant Contact or a MailChimp or a Aweber or any other email marketing platform. basically, you got to have multiple ways to collect email addresses because not everyone will um, do it the same way. You can have an email sign up within a form. Now, if I really wanted to, I could just like auto check those boxes so people would have to uncheck them. But, didn't do that. You can have what's called a light box. I'm sure you've had this happen to you. You're looking at a website and then like it goes black and you think you're passing out, but then this thing pops up as if lit up from behind, like a light box. You can do that. You can have it in the sidebar or the header or footer of your website. And basically, we don't want to assume. So, besides having multiple ways to get on your email list from your website, we also want to have multiple things like having people be able to sign up on through social media, having people be able to sign up in real life, whether that's like a guest book or a fishbowl, business card thing, where they can text to join it. So there's basically all these, we can have an email sign up call to action button right within Facebook or an email sign up form. We can tell, so this is how they did it. Someone did it on Instagram. Our newsletter is coming off 20% off, link in the bio. So you just would go to their bio and see the link. So you basically want these different ways that people can give you their email address because you want their email address. It's good. And you got to give them something for their email address, either a special offer, right? Whether it's like a certain percentage off or something like that, or something for free that they can't get somewhere else. So for example, I almost unsubscribed from this, and then I got this email newsletter. It was like, oh, hey, thanks for being awesome. Here's 20% off. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't unsubscribe. Or you can offer a free something, click here to sign up and get our free white paper, that kind of thing. So now the other thing is within email, you can have what's called segmentation. And what that is it allows you to send to a part of your list. So for example, let's say that the example that a lot of people give is like you're doing a concert and you collect where people are in the world, right? You collect what city and state they're in. And so let's say you're coming to Indianapolis. What you could do if you had collected what city and state people were in is you could email only the people in and around Indianapolis about your upcoming concert. But basically what you want to do is think about how you want to market to people in the future and collect information related to that. So, you can either have people sort of self-select, like, are you a man or a woman? Or when's your birthday, month and day? Maybe don't ask for year. And the pros are, of course, you don't have to do it. But the longer the form is, the less likely people are going to fill it out. Something I've started doing is sort of segmenting the list myself because I'm such a small company. I know everybody on the list. So rather than going back and asking them, I'm just like putting them into categories and things. It's a little tedious and time consuming, but maybe it'll be worth it. Do you have to segment your list? No, you can just collect people's email addresses if you want. But sometimes if you have several sets of customers or you want to be a little bit more personal or you have a really big list and you want to just have people get the information they feel like is good for them, it might be something to think about. So at least, by the way, when I bring this stuff up, I tell you the word. Now you know the word. You can look up more stuff about it. So like I said, there's laws that cover email marketing, and that's why most people use an email marketing service because it's just allows them to be compliant. I really personally like MailChimp a lot because it is free for up to 2,000 subscribers, which most of us fall into, myself included. It has great integrations with different website building software and different social media software, and things that I really like a lot. Now, most of the time you're going to send a regular campaign when you send an email newsletter, and that just is like an informational email with stuff in it. But a couple of types of campaigns I just want to talk about is this are here, and one of them is called an RSS-driven campaign within MailChimp. And basically what that does, we have it, for example, for our blog. So once a week we have it scheduled to say, hey, there's anything new on the blog, send it to all our blog subscribers automatically within this email template. So if you get the latest from Breaking Even newsletter, it's not a newsletter I made, it's a newsletter that was automatically generated. So just know that if you have a blog or something that you want to automatically go out, this can be a really good way to do it. The other thing a lot of people use with email marketing is drip campaigns. And what that is when you slowly tell people information. So for example, let's say that within 1 hour signing up, the person, you set it so the person gets a welcome email. And then 8 hours later, they get a helpful guide to your services, also via email. And then a week later, you check in with them, how's it going? So what you can do is you can sort of set these so that as people are added to your list, they get the same set of information over a period of time. This way you don't overwhelm them, and this way they all have an idea of what your products and services are. And ideally you've given them some value for that, not just talked at them, but just know that that's what that's called. In MailChimp, this is a premium feature, by the way, and all premium means in the website world is that you pay for it. I think it's like $10 a month or something when you first start off. But just know that you don't have to use it. Just know that it's back there, and in particular, if your product requires some education, it's kind of a nice way to let people have the same information within a period of time when they start getting to know your company. And within these services, like within MailChimp, we can see the open rate of your email. And what I like about MailChimp is it gives you an average for your industry. So it makes you feel a little bit better. By the way, I think 25% is pretty good for most industries. So in my industry, for example, it is a 16% open rate, but I have a 51.2% open rate. So, and then you have your click rate, which is if you have links within the email template, how many times they got clicked. We can see which of those links got clicked. We can see who opened the emails, which I think is really funny. I like the person who opened it 127 times. I'm wondering if just every time they opened their computer, it like kind of pulled my message in or something like that. But you just pick a couple of things that are important to you and you track those. So, and like I said, the great thing with these email template services is that you can design them and you can make them look really nice. You can have buttons, you can have, you can show video, you can show pictures, and you can have a lot of control over what they look like. And the final thing I guess I want to talk about is ads, because I get a lot of questions about ads. I want to talk about paid ads in general, when to pay, examples of ads, and this idea called remarketing. So when I tell people, if you pay for attention, you'll get it, but you got to pay for it. I tell people to use paid ads as part of their marketing mix, but not for a majority of it. And I think they're good for a few purposes. One is testing an audience or testing messaging. So like you can almost treat it like market research, like run a series of ads at the same time to the same audience to test different marketing messages. So this is a shake that I really like a lot. And so as you see, it's like got a picture. This is called a carousel, by the way. I screenshotted it weird so I could show, but what it was it was on one line and you could press the arrows and kind of see a series of these pictures, and each one said learn more. So only 250 calories, learn more, keeps you full for hours, learn more, over 70 superfoods and nutrients, which is getting cut off, learn more, just mix water and go, learn more. Now, we could see if we were this company, let's say that a bunch of people were like, 70 superfoods, learn more. Let's say a bunch of people click that. We would know maybe that was a more enticing marketing message than the other ones. And so maybe we'd want to take out a series of ads with different pictures related to that only over 70 superfoods and nutrients. So what it allows us to do, and we're thinking about doing a big ad, in a magazine or something with it. This allows us to actually test what's important before we spend a lot of money or a lot of time. Or let's say we think like, what should our homepage slogan be? Well, maybe it should be one of these things that people think are important. The other reason I think it's good to pay for ads is sometimes you have a time-sensitive offer. Like, you have people that you want to come to a workshop, or you have 5 left of a certain size t-shirt, that kind of thing. That's a good thing to have an ad for too, is to just let people know that there's this limited time offer. And then sometimes ads are good if you want to grow on a particular social network. So if you want more Twitter followers, taking out ads on Twitter is probably a good idea. If you want more, so if you want to get bigger on that particular platform and that's a measure of success to you, taking out ads there can be a good idea. I will say we've done some experimenting and some reading, and we see that taking out ads on videos versus non-videos, in particular within Facebook, is actually a lot less expensive. And a lot more, I guess, effective. So if you see, both of these things, by the way, were about photo filters, about Prisma and a few other. So one was a blog post we did about Prisma, and one was a video we did about Prisma, and we linked them both. We did a $7 ad for both of them for the same period of time for the same group of people. And as you see, the engagements on the video is close to 1,500. The engagements on the linked post were 18. We'd have to do further testing, but it just gives you an idea that like people are more interested in video. And Facebook wants us to promote video, so it makes those ads cheaper. There is this thing though, just so you know, called remarketing. And basically Facebook and Google let you create what's called remarketing pixels that you can put on your website. So let's say that you, a year from now, wanted to buy a Google ad, Google AdWords, and you said, okay, I want to spend money on Google ads, but I only want to market to people who've been to my website. If you had the remarketing pixel on your website, you would actually have that. Google won't show you who those people are, but you can buy an ad to remarket to the people who've been to your website. And think about it, you're going to market differently to people who've been to your website than people who haven't, because they have at least a passing familiarity with you. So what I tell people to do is if you think you want to do this in the future, add the remarketing pixel now to your website, both Facebook and Google. So, you can buy Facebook ads or Google ads to people who've been to your website. The thing is, you have to put it on your website and it starts counting after that. There's no way you can go back and retroactively see who's come to your website. Paid ads are part of the marketing mix. To me, they're not marketing because you're just like sort of paying for attention. Like I could say, oh, you're my friend, but if I'm paying you $5 to be my friend, you're not really my friend. You're my friend because I'm paying you to. So to me, paid ads should be used sparingly and purposefully. And the money and time you spend mainly should be on creating relationships. More marketing, less ads is less expensive and longer lasting results. So as we come up to the end of our time together, you may say, okay, well, what do I do, right? So let's ask ourselves these questions, and maybe that will give you an idea of what you should do next. First of all, do you have a website, and is it up-to-date and mobile friendly? Does your website have some kind of analytics, whether it's Google Analytics or some other thing that you can tell who's visiting and what they're doing? Does your business do well in search? If you search for your business, do you come up? Do you want to sell online? And how and what do you want to sell if you do? What social media sites do you think you should be using, and how will they get updated? And when should your email newsletter go out, and how will people subscribe to it? Now you could just say, Nicole, I don't want to do an email newsletter. I decided I'm going to use Facebook for 6 months, and I'm going to sell gift certificates on my website. That is perfectly fine. What we want to do is we don't want to overwhelm you, right? We want to just say, okay, if you had 15 minutes a day, and by a day, I mean like the 5 days a week that you potentially work, if you spend a little bit of time on these things, what could you do? What could be your 15-minute marketing plan? So I created 2 samples here, and I thought maybe if you wanted to, after this, you could create one and just let me know how it goes. So let's say you're a real estate agency, and your main goals were to get new clients because you sell someone a house or a business, you probably can't sell them something immediately after that. So you want new people in your pipeline all the time. You want to illustrate your community involvement, and you want to make sure information that's out there is correct in terms of housing prices and available properties and all that. And you want to introduce agents to your community. Okay, those are your goals. So maybe you say, okay, I'm going to spend an hour a month on the email newsletter. And in the email newsletter, I'm going to talk about a featured property, a testimonial from one of our satisfied customers, and talk about one of our upcoming open houses. And I'm going to send that to everybody on our list. And then I'm going to do Facebook posts. I'm going to spend 30 minutes a week. And what I'm going to post about is available properties. I'm going to do a little community involvement thing. I'm going to do a weekly live video at a property. It doesn't have to be a long one, but maybe I'm just going to show the living room and of a really cool property. I'm going to tell people to subscribe to our email list. And I'm going to do an open house event because I talked about the open houses in the email newsletter, and I'm going to invite some people I think might get a kick out of it. And I'm going to spend 1 hour a month making sure my website is up to date, that all our new agents are on our website, that our upcoming open houses are up to date on our website, that we have new testimonials that are also on our website. So as you see, that works out to actually less than 15 minutes a day, I think, when I did the math. Now, a complete opposite end is I sell dog collars online. Okay, so my goal is to sell more dog collars. I want to grow my email list because I know that I can reach out to those people, and chances are they're going to buy more than one dog collar, maybe at a time. And I want to get people to share on social media about my website so that I get more customers. So maybe like I'm going to run a quarterly photo contest for a free collar. I'm going to spend about 1 hour a month on it. And I'm going to use Instagram for it. And I'm going to say, okay, post cute pictures of your dog with the hashtag my dog needs a collar. And we will do a drawing. And once a quarter, every 3 months, we will send a free dog collar to one of the people. So maybe I'm also going to post my dog collars to Pinterest and Google Plus with links to the items in the cart. So that way, like, people can buy them and they get a nice little search boost from the Google posts. And I'm going to write a weekly blog. I'm going to spend only 30 minutes on it. And I'm going to set it so it automatically goes out to my email list with special offers. So I'm just build a little template. I don't have to, I'm just going to write the blog and it's automatically going to send out. Again, that works out to about 15 minutes a day, maybe a little bit less. But the idea with the 15-minute marketing plan, I'm not trying to be overly simplistic here, but the idea is you're going to be really intentional with your time, and you're going to know what information you want to circulate ahead of time and your goals, and you're going to give things time to work or not work. Ideally, 6 months. 3 is tough, but do what you got to do. So, thinking about all these different tools you have at your disposal and knowing that you're going to use some and you're probably not going to use most of them, and that's okay. Because you certainly can't do everything, and I'm certainly not telling you to. But thanks so much for watching this video. I'm going to have a thing of helpful resources and a link to the marketing questions that we typically ask people when we consult with them as part of this workshop. So please refer to those. And again, my name is Nicole Willette. Thanks for watching. And if you have any questions, I hope you reach out online. And I hope you have a great time, and I look forward to hearing about what you're doing with your business and any way I can support it. So thanks again, and I will hopefully see you online or in real life soon.